Hello, my friends. Welcome to Get Your Play Online. My name is Michelle, and today we are going to do some science experiments. Today's science experiment is going to be a density test, and we're going to use some rainbow colors for our density test today. So let me just double check that we are live, and then we can go ahead and get started on our experiment. Okay, let's see. Perfect. All right, and again, welcome. Thank you for tuning in to Get Your Play Online. And my name is Michelle. So let's go ahead and get started with our science experiment for today. So let me just quickly tell you the things we're going to need for this experiment, and then we can get right into it. So first, for some utensils, we're going to need a glass cup. You want it to be kind of taller so that we can add all of these liquids inside. I also have a little spatula, like a rubber little spoon, and this is going to help us mix some things together. I also have a few of these mixing bowls, and I have food coloring as well. And then the liquids that we are going to be testing the density of today are oil. You can use pretty much any vegetable oil. I have some olive oil here with me today. We're going to be testing honey, rubbing alcohol, and dish soap. All right. Oh, and as well as water. Can't forget about the water. So I also have with me a bunch of paper towels just because we are going to be working with various liquids today. I'm keeping these off to the side in case we have any mess. I also have with me some paper and some markers because what I like to do when I'm doing an experiment like this is kind of write down or draw my observations, and I would also like to make a prediction with you guys before we actually do the experiment. So let's get started with that aspect of our science, and then we can test our liquids. So I have my paper over here. And what I like to do, like I just mentioned, is kind of write a prediction about how the experiment is going to go. And what I want to explain before we make our prediction is what is density? So density is basically just how heavy a liquid is. What is the mass of the liquid? And that is the density. It kind of refers to how close together the molecules are inside of the liquid, and that's what makes a liquid more or less dense than other liquids. So we do have a variety of liquids here today. Some are more dense than others, as we are going to find out. So using our knowledge of what density means, let's go ahead and make a prediction together on which of our liquids will be the most dense today. So let me just go ahead and set out the liquids to show you guys one more time. We have honey, oil, dish soap, rubbing alcohol, and we have water. And most of these items you can find around your house, but this one and this one right here, the oil and the rubbing alcohol, please be sure to ask mom and dad to help you find them. They might be up in a cabinet somewhere, and you might need some help pouring them out in a safe way. So back to our liquids. One of these is going to be the most dense, and it's going to sink to the bottom. One of them is going to be the least dense. It's going to be the lightest, and it's going to sit on top. Okay, so I would like to see if anyone watching has a prediction on which one of these liquids is going to be the most dense. If you're watching live right now, go ahead and type out your prediction in the comments. and I would love to see that the prediction. Which liquid is going to be the most dense, and which liquid do you think is going to be the least dense? So let's just take a second to see if anyone out there would like to get their predictions in before we get started with the experiment. I'm going to set these off to the side while we're waiting. All right, so it doesn't look like I have any predictions in yet in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys what my own prediction is going to be. Let's see. I think, using some previous knowledge, I think the oil is going to be the most dense. So at the bottom of my paper, I'm going to write the word prediction. Prediction. Okay, prediction. I think oil is going to be the most dense. So I'm going to write oil, and I'm going to put a down arrow because it's going to sink to the bottom if it's the most dense. So I think oil is going to be the most dense. Okay, my second prediction is that I think the water is going to be the least dense. Kind of using my prior knowledge of maybe seeing some things in the kitchen happen. We might already know that oil and water don't mix. So what I think is going to happen is that the water is probably going to be the least dense. So I'm going to write down water, W-A-T-E-R, and I'm going to write an up arrow because if water is least dense, it's going to float all the way up to the top. So those are just my guesses. Those are our predictions. And right here, I do have a little paper where we're going to draw out the results of the experiment. So I've kind of just drawn this big rectangle on my paper, and I have my predictions at the bottom. So I think we are just about ready to get started. We have all of our materials, and we've made a guess, a prediction about what is going to happen in the experiment. Okay, if you don't want to make a prediction, but you do kind of want to color the results of the experiment, go ahead and just draw a big rectangle on your paper. That's the only thing you need to do for this part. All right, so let's get our materials out in front of us and get started on conducting our experiment. Okay, so on my tray, I have one mixing bowl. I have my glass. This can also be a plastic cup as long as it's clear. We just want it to be see-through. And I also have my spatula and my food coloring ready. So the first liquid we're going to test is going to be our honey. And I did cheat a little bit. I already put some honey in one of my mixing bowls. I put about this much. Okay, I filled it up quite a bit. Okay, and here's where the rainbow colors come in. Our honey is going to get 1 drop of blue food coloring, and it's going to get 1 drop of red. Okay, and if anyone out there knows what these 2 colors make, that's right, it's going to be purple. Okay, so we are going to turn our honey purple with food coloring. I'm going to do 1 drop of blue. I'm trying to be really careful because I only want 1 drop to come out. Okay, perfect. 1 drop of blue and 1 drop of red. And then we're going to mix, mix, mix. Drop. Perfect. Okay, I'm taking my little spatula. You can use a spoon. and I am mixing my food coloring. You want to mix it up really good, kind of get the sides, because our honey, it looks really thick. Can you see when you're mixing it that it looks kind of sticky? And it's a little bit runny. Oh, and it smells good too. Okay, so I have a lot of honey in here. I'm gonna add one more drop of each because I poured out a lot of honey in my bowl. So if you don't have a lot of honey out in your bowl, you probably don't need these extra drops. But we really want it to turn purple. So I am adding a couple extra drops just because I have a lot of honey here in my bowl. Okay, and I'm gonna mix, mix, mix. Ooh, this might get kind of messy because it looks like I spilled some. Ah, okay, mix, mix, mix. Mix it really, really good because this honey is thick. Okay, let's see how that's turning out. Huh. I really poured a lot of honey in mine. So I'm gonna go back in with my food coloring, and that's okay because scientists, sometimes we really don't know what exactly is gonna happen when we're doing our experiment. That's why we call it an experiment, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, and we are just being curious about what is going to happen when we do an experiment. So it's okay if things don't always go according to plan. That's why we are scientists and conducting our little experiment. We just want to see what happens. Okay, I think I've got a good purple color. Hopefully this time around I put enough food coloring in. All right. Last drop, I promise. I really poured a lot of honey out, so I'm going back in with one more blue drop, and just to see what happens. I want to make sure it's a nice, beautiful purple color. Great job mixing, you guys. And don't be afraid to ask mom or dad to help you out if you're having some trouble with the honey because it can really get messy. All right, I don't think I'm gonna get a perfect purple color. This is probably about the best color I'm gonna get from this honey. Hopefully you all can learn from my mistake of pouring way too much honey in here. I would love to see some beautiful pictures of your science experiment. Okay, so once you've mixed your food coloring into your honey, we're gonna pour it right into our glass. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Great. Okay, and so my honey came out pretty dark. I wonder what everyone else's honey looks like. Great, and this is gonna be sticky, so that's why I have my paper towels off to the side. I'm gonna put aside this mixing bowl. Okay, and right now all we have in here is honey. Okay, we don't really know if honey is more or less dense than anything else because it's the only one we have. So let's add some more liquids. Next up is gonna be our dish soap. I have some blue dish soap here, and if you're really wanting to make a perfect rainbow, you do want to try and have blue dish soap. If you don't have blue, you can add some blue food coloring because I know a lot of dish soap might be yellow or even clear. So try adding some blue food coloring if you can't get your hands on some blue dish soap. So when we're adding our liquids, we want to pour them super, super slowly because we will get a good look at how the liquids are going to separate themselves, okay? If we pour it in too fast, the liquids are going to mix together and we won't be able to see which one is more dense. So I'm pouring in super slow at first. I'm pouring my dish soap on top of my honey. Pour, pour, pour. This is going to take just a minute because we want to do it nice and slow. Nice and slow. Keep on pouring and just notice what's starting to happen. I'm seeing a little blue layer starting to form on top of the honey. Wow, and I'm using a lot of dish soap here because I have kind of a big glass with me. So you might not need to pour this much dish soap. Pour, 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 and I'm smelling my dish soap. It smells kind of sweet. It smells clean. It's important if you're being a scientist to use all of your senses and notice everything that's going on around you. So I'm looking and observing, and I'm also using my sense of smell. Yeah, that definitely smells like soap. Okay, I think I've got a pretty good layer here. I'm gonna do just a little bit more. Just so you guys can see pretty clearly. All right, yeah, that was quite a bit of dish soap. Hopefully you guys have a little bit of a smaller glass at home. I chose this big one just so we can see the liquid nicely and nice and clear. So right now, you'll probably have something that looks like this. Hopefully y'all can see it on the computer screen. I see a really dark layer. It has a little bit of a tinge of purple. And then on top of that dark layer, I have a nice, beautiful blue layer. So we can see our liquids are stacking on top of each other. They're not mixing. And if you'll notice, the honey has stayed on the bottom. And that means the honey is more dense than the soap. It's heavier. It's staying on the bottom. And the soap is lighter, so it's floating on top of the honey. It's staying right on top because those molecules in the soap are a little bit farther apart than the molecules inside the honey. All right, let's see what we have next. Now let's test some water. This one might get tricky because, you use soap and water to wash your hands. So when we test this water out, we want to do it nice and slow so the water and the soap do not mix. So I'm just wiping off my spatula over here. I'm getting all the honey off of it. So let's get our water. I have some water here in a little mixing bowl. And we are going to add some green food coloring. So I have my water, I have my green food coloring. And I'm gonna add about 2 drops. You really don't wanna add more than 2 drops, even if you have a lot of water like I do. All right, ooh, that looks very cool, friends. I wanna show you how my food coloring looks inside my water. It's kind of looks like watercolor if you've ever seen watercolor paintings. So we're gonna mix that up. Got my spatula. We're just gonna mix really gently because water and food coloring really like each other. It's gonna mix easily, okay? I have my green water. Here's the tricky part, friends. We really want to pour this super slowly into our glass because we don't want the water and the soap to mix. We want to see them nice and separate so we can tell which one is heavier, all right? So I have my green water here. Oh, I'm a little nervous. I really want to pour it nice and slow, all right? And this bowl can be tricky sometimes, so I'm gonna pour it right over like this. There we go. Oh boy. I'm pouring my water, pour, pour, pour. I'm really hoping it's not going to mix. And look at that. I think I see them separating. Very cool. I can see that my water is now sitting right on top of my dish soap. They haven't really mixed much. I am getting some bubbles, but that's okay. That looks super cool on my end. I really hope you guys can see through the computer screen. We now have a really cool green layer on top of our blue and our purple layer. So hopefully we know what that means. This water is sitting right on top of the dish soap. So that means our water is less dense than the soap. The soap is denser than the water. Very cool. Let's keep on moving. Next, we have our oil. This is another easy one because we're not going to need to add any food coloring to our oil. We already like that nice golden color that our oil has. So again, please, please, please ask mom and dad if you think you might need help pouring this, because this oil is going to be very messy if we spill, kind of like the honey. And we don't want to waste too much oil. I think that using the oil this way is a really good way to learn. That's why we're using the oil, but we want to try not to waste it. We want to use it for a good purpose. So just be careful while you are pouring this out. And a lot of oil bottles have this little stopper at the top that kind of helps it come out slowly. So we are just going in with our oil. We're going to pour it nice and slow, please. All right, and I'm gonna pause and see what's happening. Oh, I see that my oil mixed just a tiny bit with the water, but I am seeing a nice layer form on top of the green. So I'm gonna keep pouring super slow as I can. Just be very patient, friends. Nice and slow. I can see that oil layer forming right on top of the green water. All right. I love how I can look back and see my water pouring down, and at first it looks like the water is going to go down, down, down. It really looks like the water is going to go straight to the bottom, or sorry, it looks like the oil is going to go straight to the bottom, but it doesn't. It comes right back up to the top. And that is very interesting to me, because if you remember, my prediction was that the oil was going to be heavier. Wow, that is super cool. I learned something new. I think I have a pretty good layer of oil. It looks like I'm just about done. I want to add a little bit more. You can just add as much oil as you want to get a nice thick layer on top of the green water. And I am just going to add a little bit more. Very, very cool. I am just so impressed that I was able to learn something new, because I'm just going to pull out my prediction card really quickly. In the very beginning, I thought that the oil was going to be heavy and sink to the bottom, and I thought the water was going to be lighter and sink to the top. But after conducting this experiment, we can see that's not true. We can see that the oil is now sitting on top of the green water. That is very cool. That means that the oil is less dense than the water. Wow, I learned something new. Okay, let's get back to it. We have one more liquid to test, and that would be our rubbing alcohol. Okay, unfortunately, I only had this 50% isopropyl alcohol. It's pretty much the same as rubbing alcohol, but if you can find a higher percentage, that's gonna be a little bit better. This is just what I had on hand, so we're gonna go ahead and have to test it out. But again, we are scientists and not everything in our experiment is going to be perfect, okay? So just use what you have on hand, do your best, and let's see what happens. So moms and dads, please ask your caregivers, moms and dads, to help you find this in your house, and they might want to help you pour it out, because this again is it's not expensive, but it is an important ingredient to have around the house, so we don't want to be wasteful with it, okay? So just be careful pouring it. It's not going to hurt you. I just don't want us to waste our ingredients. Okay, so I'm going to put some red food coloring in here. I'm going to put about 2 drops. And again, this is our rubbing alcohol. We are going to test how dense this rubbing alcohol is compared to the rest of our liquids. And right now we have a pretty good rainbow color happening. So we're just gonna see if we can keep our rainbow layers when we pour in this rubbing alcohol. So let's be very careful when we pour in. Just like when we poured the oil, we want to do it nice and slow. So I've got my dish kind of resting on the cup. Ready? Let's see. I'm pouring nice and slow. Take your time. Not too fast. We don't want to disturb the layers below it. Okay, and so what I'm seeing right now, I'm just going to stop. I see that the rubbing alcohol is actually going right underneath my oil. And that is very interesting to me, because I would have thought that the rubbing alcohol was going to be lighter than the oil. So I'm learning something very new. Even scientists learn something new all the time. Okay, that was all of my alcohol. And I'm just going to show you guys a little close-up. Wow, I can see my red layer is right underneath my oil. It's not a perfect rainbow, but that's okay because I learned something really cool. Just looking at these liquids, we can see that oil is actually the least dense. And that is really blowing my mind, you guys, because I thought in the beginning, I thought oil was going to be the heaviest. I thought oil was going to sink right to the bottom. And I thought all the rest of the liquids were going to sit on top. But actually, oil is sitting right at the top. That means it has the least density. That means the oil molecules are going to be farther apart. Okay, the molecules making up this oil are far apart. And if you look at the bottom, our honey, those molecules are tight together. That's what makes the honey have a higher density. The honey is the most dense, and the oil is the least dense. I learned lots of cool things today with you guys. The last thing I want to do is just write out the results using this paper that I made in the beginning. So both of my predictions were wrong, but that's okay, because the whole point of doing a science experiment is to learn something new. So both of my predictions turned out to be wrong. I'm going to draw my rainbow layers in my little rectangle here, and you guys can do that with me. And maybe we can even label the layers together. So I'm going to get rid of my tray so I can start coloring. And I'm going to get my markers. And let me push you guys down so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so first of all, our predictions, well, my predictions, they weren't right. What happened was that the result, oil was the least dense. It's sitting at the top. And honey is the most dense. It's sitting at the bottom. So I'm writing the result at the bottom. And this is what mine looks like. You don't have to write if you don't want to, but I'm just doing this so our friends who know how to spell and write can make a cool little experiment card. Okay, so let's draw our layers. This is something really important to do after you conduct a science experiment. You want to record your findings. So this is how we are going to record our findings. We're just going to draw a simple picture. Okay, so I'm going to start from the bottom. Honey was purple, okay, and honey is at the bottom because it has the highest density. So I'm just taking a purple marker and I'm going to color like a little strip here at the bottom of my rectangle to represent honey. And then it might be kind of hard to see on camera, but next is the blue dish soap. So blue dish soap is going to be represented by a blue marker. Okay, I'm going in with a blue strip on top of my purple. And you guys can probably guess how this is going to go. Next is my water, and that one was green. This probably just looks like a cup of mud on camera, but hopefully in person you can see your rainbow layers really clearly, like I can. So on top of the dish soap was the green water. So I'm drawing a little strip of green to represent my green water. Okay, so here's the tricky part, because now I see my layer of red rubbing alcohol is on top of the green. So that isn't exactly a rainbow order, but that's okay because that is how our experiment happened. That's how it worked out. And we're going to record it exactly how it worked out. My red marker is not very juicy today, but that's all right. So red ended up being on top of green. And then what's at the very top is our oil, which was kind of like a yellow golden color. Beautiful. Great job, friends. So that is my depiction of our results. That's how I would like to record our results. You can take it one step further with me, and I'm going to show you how. I'm going to label my layers. So the way I'm going to do that is simply I'm going to draw a little line with my black marker coming out of each layer, each color. I'm going to make my line a little bit longer. They don't have to be perfect. Okay, so we are going to label these layers so we know which one is which. If we ever want to look back at this little card and see the results of our experiment, we kind of want to know what was going on. So I think the best way to do that is to record it and label these layers. So the yellow was oil, so we're going to write oil together. O-I-L. So let me show you a little close-up. Okay, you can see that I have my black line pointing to the yellow oil, and I have written oil on top of the black line, so I know what this yellow means if I ever go back and look at this. My red was the rubbing alcohol, so I'm going to write rubbing alcohol, R-U-B-B-I-N-G. A L C O H O L. And I ran out of room, but that's okay because I'm pretty sure if I can read the first part of my word, I'm going to remember that this red was rubbing alcohol. Next, we had the green water. So I'm going to write water on the line that's pointing to the green spot. Water, W-A-T-E-R. Next, we had the dish soap. Let's write that together. I'm going to simply write soap. So S-O-A-P. And last, we had the honey at the bottom. So let's write that together. Honey is H-O-N-E-Y. Great job, friends. If you had a little bit of trouble with the spelling, you can just ask mom or dad, or you can rewatch this video and you can kind of pause it to slow it down a little bit to help you out with the spelling of these words. But look, I am so proud of us. We conducted a whole science experiment about density. We made a little card to write down our results so that we can look back at this later and see what we learned. Great job, everyone. I cannot wait to see your liquid rainbow density experiments. Of course, if you do this, please snap a picture of it, post it on social media, and you can tag us, Get Your Play Online, or you can use the hashtag Get Your Play Online. So thank you so much, friends. I loved our experiment today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time on Get Your Play Online. Bye!